Disclaimer, this is a video of me reacting to someone else's Five Nights at Freddy's theory. I don't always agree with them, but that has nothing to do with how I feel about them as a person or even their channel as a whole. I have and will continue to make it clear that I am a fan of this creator, and this video is simply me providing my own opinions on their theory. This video is not trying to say that I know better or am better than this creator, it's simply me seeking out other people's opinions so that I can explain the things that I agree with, the things I don't, and so I can understand these alternate opinions whether I agree or not. Anything negative I say or any negative reaction I have towards the theory is just me disagreeing, and I will always explain my point of view. Whether you agree with my stance or the creators, please just be civil towards both of us in the comments. Thank you and enjoy the video. Okay, I haven't watched this video yet, but I've seen it on YouTube, like just the thumbnail, and why the f*** has this thumbnail changed 3 times? Hey, what is up guys, ImpulseEvan here, and today I'm bringing us the video, and in this video I'm going to be reacting to FNAF's newest FNAF security breach ruin theory. I'm pretty sure this is his first ruin theory. I don't know why I said newest. It's his newest FNAF theory, and his first FNAF ruin theory, and it's called I Solved FNAF Security Breach Ruin. Now, I haven't watched this video yet, but I've heard a couple things about it, and so far, like, what I've heard has been a little bit mixed. Some people have said, like, in the comments of my videos, people have said that it's really good. People on Discord have been saying the opposite. But I just want to see what he's going to say, and let's just get straight into it.
2 weeks ago, I went live on my YouTube channel to play Ruin and
so
see
if
I could find any new Easter eggs. And during my search for Easter eggs, Scott Cawthon himself joined my stream, and I got to give him a sneak peek of the theory I'm going to share with you today. This was his reaction. It is a very interesting theory. I know it is, Scott. Obviously, he can't confirm or deny anything, but it was really cool to see him in my stream. This theory is one of my most ambitious, and I'm super excited to share it with you. All I ask is that you keep an open mind and remember this is just a theory. One of the
all I watched from that stream was the part where he like mentioned the Twisted Ones connection, which I very much agree with. But I don't know how far he's gonna go with it, so I want to see what he's gonna say.
Things I love to do when making FNAF theories is look for the little details that help solve the greater story. I feel like that's one thing. So I started playing Ruin.
I agree. Sorry, I pause it a lot, but I mean I'm reacting to it. So yeah, I'd rather not talk over him. So I do agree. He's really good at like spotting the smaller details, and even while a lot of the time I don't like agree with the outcome of the small details, I do like that he looks deep into them. And some things maybe they don't mean anything, but I do like that he pays attention to them just in case they do, and they do get me thinking a lot of the time. So I do agree that's one of the things he's definitely good at, and I'm interested to see what exactly the small detail here is going to be.
I got overwhelmed. Steelwool Studios gave us a game where there's illusions everywhere, an AR world and the real world, and there was just so much to look at that I didn't even know where to start. So I decided instead to take a step back and look at the story they're trying to tell us.
This seems
on a very
familiar.
Basic level,
it does,
Ruin is about a little girl who breaks into an abandoned mall to try and find her friend that she swears is trapped in there. But it turns out that he wasn't trapped at all, and she was tricked. When I thought about the game like that, I started to notice something. This isn't the first time we've heard this story. The Silver Eyes trilogy were the first ever FNAF books to be released, and on a very basic level, the first book is about a group of friends who go and explore a mall that was built on top of an old Freddy's pizzeria. While they explore the old pizzeria, they have a run-in with William Afton, aka Springtrap. That sounds just like what happens in Security Breach. We explore a mall that was built on top of an old Freddy's pizzeria, and while exploring the pizzeria, we have a run-in with Springtrap. So if Security Breach is the first book, what's the second book about? In the second book, The Twisted Ones, a tornado hit the town and the mall is now destroyed. We learned that the mall was set to be demolished, but because of the tornado, the demolition was put on pause. As I kept rereading this book, the connections to what we saw in Ruin kept piling up. The mall in the books was destroyed by a tornado. The mall in the games was destroyed by an earthquake.
Supposedly.
The mall in the books was set to be demolished, but was put on hold. In Ruin, we see a giant wrecking ball that started to demolish the building, but now just sits there. In Ruin, Cassie's friend Gregory is calling out for help.
You have to find me. I'm trapped in the sinkhole under the raceway.
Following his call leads Cassie to a giant cave with glowing mushrooms, a big waterfall, and a facility full of carnival-themed mascot costumes. All of this stuff that probably felt very new and confusing also happened in this book. Charlie,
I never noticed the mushroom thing until people brought it up. but that is definitely like it's true. It is there. I will say though that I don't think that one specifically parallels one thing and the other parallels another. Like, I don't think that Silver Eyes specifically parallels Security Breach and that the Twisted Ones parallels Ruin. I feel like Security Breach and Ruin both have connections to all three of the books. Because of the fact that in the Twisted Ones, Afton is trapped underneath the location that's underneath. He's trapped underneath the location that's underneath the mall, right? And in Security Breach, Burntrap, which might not be William Afton, but like he's meant to be like emulating William Afton at the very least, he's trapped underneath the mall, and both of them are controlling the animatronics from under there. So and there's also like the Blob, which while it might not have like the missing children like the Remnant amalgamation in the Fourth Closet, the endings of both those characters in Security Breach's Afton ending kind of parallel each other, with Afton in the books trying to kill Gregory and the Blob is helping him, and in the Fourth Closet, William Afton is trying to kill that kid, and then the missing kids help. But then, in both scenarios, the Blob and the Remnant amalgamation, they turn on Afton, and then they take him away, attack him, whatever happens with him in Security Breach in the Afton ending is unknown, but they kind of parallel each other in more than one way. The Silver Eyes trilogy parallels Security Breach, and the Twisted Ones, I haven't really noticed any specific parallels between all three of the books with Ruin, but I'm sure that there either is or it's just the Twisted Ones. But Security Breach isn't limited to the Silver Eyes, is what I'm saying.
Lee swears that her missing brother Sammy is calling out to her. Following this call leads her to a giant cave with glowing mushrooms, a waterfall, and a facility with a bunch of carnival-themed mascot costumes. Charlie swears that her...
What did that say? All along the wall, arcade games and carnival attractions were lined up, each with guardian, beast, or a giant face mount on top of it.
With a bunch of carnival-themed mascot costumes. Charlie swears that her missing brother is behind a door covered in concrete. Cassie swears that Gregory is behind a door covered in concrete. And both in this book and the game, it ends up being a trap. But right before Cassie and Charlie get attacked, an animatronic comes in and saves them. In Ruin, Roxy came in and tackled the animatronic. In the book, Foxy came in and tackled the animatronic, along with the other OG animatronics. Yeah. Even the fate of both Charlie and Cassie is left a mystery at the end. The Twisted Ones literally ends with it looking like Charlie died, but then they hint that she might have survived, just like Ruin. The elevator falls, and then after the credits, we hear this.
Cassie.
Yeah. Scott isn't
so
just
she's probably
taking
still alive.
Ideas from these books, he's taking the stories themselves and using them as heavy inspiration for the games. If we looked at these books to try and predict what would happen in Ruin, we would have been almost 100% correct. So if the first book is Security Breach and the second book is Ruin, what's the third book about? Well, those
like I said, I don't think that one game parallels one book, so I don't really think that they're specifically supposed to be the Fourth Closet paralleling one thing. I feel like the Fourth Closet just parallels Security Breach too.
Themed mascot costumes weren't first introduced in the Tales books, they were introduced in the Twisted Ones to foreshadow what was to come in the Fourth Closet. When we visit Circus Baby's Pizza World, a carnival-themed restaurant, we also visit the book's version of the sister location bunker and meet all of the Funtime animatronics. And if this pattern continues, that would mean Help Wanted 2 would be the Fourth Closet. And where are we going in Help Wanted 2? The sister location bunker to meet the Funtime animatronics. If Ruin taught me anything, it's to look to these books to figure out what's going to happen next. So I would bet money that we're also going to see Circus Baby's Pizza World and Help Wanted 2. Need more proof? While searching through the game files,
I don't know about that. Maybe though.
Found this note that Steele left in an old version of the Mimic Chase area. Quote, something cool that maybe foreshadows Carnival, pending J-Top's thoughts. We definitely don't visit a carnival at the end of Ruin, so we must be visiting this carnival in Help Wanted 2. In the epilogues of the Tales Tales books, the main characters were hanging out at a carnival before heading to the Pizzaplex. One of the levels in Security Breach Fury's Rage, the last game Scott made before Security Breach released, features posters advertising a circus with a carnival happening in the background. We also have the leaked Balloon
I was
Circus
about to say that.
characters
There's
have yet
those.
to be explained. The connections go on and on, so I'm convinced that Circus Baby's Pizza World is where we're going next. But the question is why? Well, in the fourth closet, this was all leading up to Circus Baby being revealed as the big bad. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, Henry created hyper-realistic robot versions of Charlie after her death, one for each stage of her life. He kept each Charlie bot in different closets in his house. But when he got to the fourth Charlie bot, he started having regrets about what he was doing, and in a fit of grief and rage, poured his agony into the robot. After Henry left the robot behind, Afton came in and stole it, turning it into what we now know as Baby. Baby was the fourth Charlie bot, hence the title of the book, The Fourth Closet. If this sounds familiar, I've actually talked about this before. Last year, I pointed out the nightmarion plushies and imagery throughout Security Breach. Charlie possesses the puppet, so nightmarion would be the metaphorical evil/dark version of Charlie. While playing through Ruin, I noticed that the nightmarion plushies were back. Stop, Steelwool! They put this in the game to just taunt me. But it wasn't until I started exploring off-stream that I noticed they aren't just back.
There's one in the
throughout the game, but
in
most
the hallway
notably
towards
in
the
one
elevator.
Specific place. During the part of the game where the
like
is
right there,
you
right
enter
next to
this
it.
hallway leading
I think
up to an elevator,
back
and
there,
tucked behind
right there.
some boxes in the corner is a nightmarion plushie. I don't know if this is Steelwool just
I noticed that
messing
when
with me, but
I noticed that when I was going around and trying to, like, after I already beat the mimic, like I finished the ending, I got the elevator ending, and then I tried to see if there was anything else I could do, and then there wasn't. There was one thing, but I didn't do it yet. I did that the next time, but I got the mimic jump scare then, and right before that, I saw the plushie right there. What I think the plushies means, I mentioned it in a previous video. I don't think it actually has anything to do with Charlie herself. I think it has more to do with Nightmare, which is Shadow Freddy. I talked about this in a previous theory, so you guys can go watch that if you want. It's called, what's it called? It's my own video, I forgot what it's called. I think it's like What's Next for FNAF or something along those lines. So you can check that out if you want to. But basically the gist is that Nightmarion in FNAF 4 replaces Nightmare, meaning that the Nightmarion and Nightmare are the same entity, and Nightmare is Shadow Freddy, as said in the FNAF 4 files. Shadow Freddy is the evil of Afton, and in the character encyclopedia, it said that Shadow Freddy might be important going forward. And in the Fazbear Frights books, there's Eleanor, who is basically made of agony. So it could be hinting that either Eleanor or Shadow Freddy or the same, or if they're like the same entity, then either one, the same Shadow Freddy or Eleanor or both, because they're the same thing. If they're the same thing, can be the villain going forward. That's my idea. But that's what I think. But I don't know what he's gonna say now, because like the Charlie idea, I'm not sure it really makes as much sense anymore. But we'll see.
Putting one of those plushies in the most lore-heavy part of the game feels intentional. You know what else feels intentional? Throughout the game, you can collect different plushies. Every plushie features a character we see at the Pizzaplex, except two, a Baby plushie and a Nightmarion plushie. Baby and the evil version of Charlie. In the fourth closet, Baby, an evil version of Charlie, was revealed as the big bad. There's also so many weird connections to Baby in this game. There's this room full of half Scrap Baby plushies with green eyes and half Baby plushies with blue eyes. Baby is synonymous with ice cream, and the Fredbear cutout we see in one of the endings features him holding an ice cream in both his hands. Also in that ending, we see everyone sitting on a hill enjoying an ice cream. Ruin itself also plays just like Sister Location. In Sister Location, you never know if you should trust Baby. In Ruin, you never know if you should trust Gregory. Both
no,
games end with them telling us to go left.
I think we knew it. I think he's right that they're similar, but I think that they're more so similar in the way that we do know that we shouldn't trust them.
Right.
Go forward and left.
I get what he's saying though.
Go right. Keep going.
And both games feature an ending with a scooper. The multiple connections to Carnival, Baby, and Nightmarion seem to tell us that some version of what happened in the fourth closet is going to happen in the games. And in the fourth closet, Baby reveals that she was the one pretending to be Charlie's brother calling out for help.
I feel like
Baby
it already
also
did
reveals
happen. I feel like the connections between the fourth closet and like the current era of FNAF kind of already did happen in Security Breach. Because not only is there what I talked about earlier with like the Remnant amalgamation being similar to the Blob, but there is like the whole thing with Vanessa, whose backstory is very similar to Elizabeth. Whether or not she's possessed by Elizabeth, that's like a different topic, but her backstory is similar to Elizabeth, which seems like she's basically, obviously she's not pretending to be Charlie, but she's either pretending to be or represents Elizabeth in some way. So I feel like that could be kind of the connection, but yeah, like I just said, it's not pretending to be Charlie. So I don't know.
She wants to steal Charlie's identity so she can look more human. This is just like the ending of the Fazbear Frights books. Eleanor, who I think is the book's parallel to Baby, was revealed as the big bad.
Really.
And her main thing is stealing people's identities by ripping off their limbs. This plot point of a robot wanting to steal a human's identity is something...
Ripping off the limbs isn't part of it, but like, she just rips off their limbs to kill them, to like slowly replace them with scrap metal so that they could eventually just die all at once, pretty much. What she does, like, she can just pretend to be them whenever she wants to, because she has the remnant pendant, and she could just use that whenever she wants to. She just slowly kills them, basically.
Something we see over and over again in the Frights and Tales books. Story after story, Scott has been hammering this idea of a robot wanting to look more human into our heads. So both in the Silver Eyes trilogy and the Fazbear Frights books, we have a version of Baby being revealed as the big bad, with their main thing being they want to steal someone's identity. But at the end of Ruin, the big bad is revealed to be... By now, I'm sure you've heard of the Mimic, an endoskeleton first introduced in the Tales books.
No, never heard of it.
Whatever it sees. Here's a quick summary of the Mimic's story from the Tales books. A guy named
How long
Edwin,
is
who
this?
works as an engineer
It's just
for
like 30
Fazbear
seconds. I'll
Entertainment,
wait.
built this endoskeleton for his son to keep him occupied while he works. This endoskeleton was programmed to mimic anything it sees, so it started mimicking Edwin's son. After Edwin's son died tragically, the endoskeleton was still mimicking Edwin's son. So in a fit of grief and rage, Edwin beat up the endoskeleton, pouring his agony into it. But the Mimic started mimicking what Edwin did to it, brutally killing anyone it came into contact with. The main way it would do this is by putting on random mascot costumes and then ripping off people's limbs. This endoskeleton was still mimicking Edwin.
Technically, it didn't rip off the limbs until it was programmed to, but yeah.
Edwin's kid, but it was also murdering people at the same time. So it was basically an evil robot version of Edwin's kid. If you've watched any of my recent theories, you know that I believe this story is a parallel to Henry's story from the Silver Eyes trilogy. And after figuring out that Scott is using the Silver Eyes trilogy as heavy inspiration for the games, that belief has only been strengthened. In the Silver Eyes, Henry built a robot that mimics his daughter Charlie. Henry then poured his agony into the robot and left it behind, only for William to steal it and turn it into what we now know as Baby. Baby was now an evil robot version of Henry's kid, just like the Mimic. And I think a very similar version of this story happened in the games as well. I think Henry built this endoskeleton to mimic his daughter Charlie, but after Charlie's death, Henry left it behind, only for Afton to steal it and use it to help build what we now know as Baby. The main goal of Eleanor and Baby in the Silver Eyes trilogy was to look more human by stealing someone's identity, and I think this endoskeleton that was built to mimic Charlie also wants the same thing. It was built to mimic Charlie, but it doesn't look human. Just like the robots wanting to be human stories Scott's been telling us for years now, it wants to be human. It wants to steal Cassie's identity. Need more proof? Throughout Ruin, you can find these comics that Cassie reveals were drawn by Gregory. These comics tell us that most of the endings that happened in Security Breach were not real and were just made up in Gregory's head, including the Burn Trap ending. During the Burn Trap ending of Security Breach, we see that Vanny was camping out down there helping to bring Afton back to life. We see that Afton was being kept in a charging pod with a circular window on the front of it. In Security Breach Fury's Rage, Vanny's boss battle takes place in a factory full of animatronic limbs and torsos, almost like Vanny is trying to rebuild
the baby,
and that thing that she's trying to rebuild is also being kept in a similar pod to Burn Trap. But it's not Burn Trap, it's Eleanor, a version of Baby that's known for ripping off people's limbs and stealing their
I've always
identity,
noticed that,
just like
and I've always found it
rips off
interesting.
people's limbs and I think wants to steal Cassie's identity. But how could this endo be Baby if...
I don't think that the Mimic ever wanted to steal their identities. I think what it wants to do is just what it wants to do in the Tales from the Pizzaplex books, because that's exactly what it's doing. When we get jump scared by the Mimic, we see it like it grabs us by our side, and then we fall on the ground. We can't see specifically, but what it looks like is that he rips off her arms, right? And then he goes for the head, just like the Mimic in the Tales books. And the Mimic here is using someone else's voice and using a radio to talk to somebody to lure them down so that he could rip off their limbs and heads. So it's basically just doing what it did in the Tales epilogues, where it's just luring them in so it can rip off their arms. It's essentially still, it seems like it's still maybe in work mode like it was in the epilogues, as in, like, it was turned on to work mode so that it could tear off the limbs and heads of the endoskeletons, but it thought that humans were endoskeletons, so it ripped off the humans' heads and limbs. So, and it went to, like, really great extent to do so by using the radio to call out to them and lure them to a specific room where it was hiding and then rip off their arms, legs, and heads. And that's basically what he does in Ruin. So I don't think that there's really that much deeper of an explanation for that, because I think it's just doing what it did in Tales.
If she was scooped in Sister Location and burned in FNAF,
I'm gonna rewind a little bit.
Just like the Mimic rips off people's limbs and I think wants to steal Cassie's identity. But how could this Endo be Baby if she was scooped in Sister Location and burned in FNAF 6? Well, in the Tales books, it's revealed that the Mimic loves putting on costumes, just like you see in Ruin. But there's one specific costume that's been mentioned multiple times now.
The Jester?
A Jester costume, which is what Baby is. She's dressed up just like a Jester. But the most recent
Not really,
time
more
this
just
Jester
like a
costume
clown.
was brought up, it was revealed that it isn't just a normal costume, it's a Springlock suit. A Jester Springlock costume that this
Was it the Jester? Yeah, okay.
Costume, it's a Springlock suit. A Jester Springlock costume that this Mimic endoskeleton has put on and walked around in. Charlie describes Springlock suits in the Silver Eyes by saying, quote, "I think they were costumes. Sometimes people wore them, and sometimes my father put them onto the robots. Springlock suits can be put onto endoskeletons. And if this book is really hinting that Baby is a Springlock suit, that would line up with what we see at the end of Ruin. This is Baby's endoskeleton. Springlock."
I apologize for being silent. I'm just thinking right now. Could Baby be a Springlock suit? She has the 5 fingers. But, like, I don't think there's any room for a human to fit in there because of the claw. So, and also these animatronics were just made to kill kids. So it wouldn't make that much sense if, with all the mechanisms like the claws inside their chests, that people could wear them. Because I feel like they would die from it. And also, if they were made to kill people, then when people were wearing the costumes, were they just not realizing that they were murdering people? I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense.
Suit, that would line up with what we see at the end of Ruin. This is Baby's endoskeleton, just without all the wires and the shell that comes with the Springlock suit. Baby Springlock suit would essentially be put onto this endoskeleton with the same eyes, teeth, and head shape as Baby. I think people forget that in Night 4 of Sister Location, Baby puts us inside a Springlock suit that has face plates, just like the Fun Times. So the idea that
I don't forget about that,
suit
but
isn't too far-fetched. But even then, Baby got
it's not
burned in
far-fetched,
FNAF
but I'm not
6.
sure it
How
works.
could her endoskeleton still be around? Well, throughout Sister Location, Baby is the main character, but we never actually see her until Night 5, when she's about to get scooped. She's obviously not been scooped yet because she still has all of her wires and is in perfect condition. If she was already scooped, those wires would be gone and her shell would be dismantled like we see with the other animatronics in the scooping room. But look at the way she's posed in this scene. She almost looks like the Golden Freddy suit.
I've
There's
noticed that
nothing to
before,
hold
yeah.
her up. She's also missing her eyes and teeth. She's missing her endoskeleton. She's posed like that because she's in suit mode. But if this endoskeleton wasn't in Baby during Sister Location, where was it? Well, one One notable trait about the Mimic is that it messes with technology. Essentially, wherever it goes, it can turn off lights and intercept radio signals, like it does to lure Cassie in Ruin. In Sister Location, it's our job to check on the animatronics and see if they're on stage. With Ballora and Foxy, even if they're not behind the glass, we can still see their stages. But when we get to Baby's room and we turn on the lights, we see nothing. Also, as the nights go on, Baby's room is the only room where the controlled shocks just straight up stop working.
Oh, Circus Baby, we aren't here to play hide and seek. Let's encourage Baby to come out of hiding with a controlled shock.
I think it's possible that the Mimic Endo that was once in Baby is now being held in this room, the Circus Gallery. Need more proof?
That's
It's
fair,
pretty
actually.
popular theory at this
That's a
point
good
that
idea,
the
actually.
pizzeria Henry uses in FNAF 6 was also Fredbear's Family Diner. People say this because the secret images
Yeah.
of the alleyway
I'm surprised
in
he
FNAF
even
6 look
knew
similar
that
to the alleyway where Charlie
that
was
theory
killed.
exists.
Also, the gameplay of FNAF 6
But I agree,
is
yeah.
literally about upgrading an old pizzeria and turning it into what we see in Security Breach. Now, in Ruin, we see a cutout of Fredbear directly
Underneath
under the
FNAF 6, yeah.
pizzeria, which only strengthens the theory that they're the same building. Henry just reused and upgraded the building he already owns. Why is this important, you ask? Because on the map in Sister Location, we can see Fredbear's Family Diner connected right to Baby's room, the Circus Gallery, the same room that I believe the Mimic was being held in. This explains why we find the Mimic trapped in this specific area. It was being held in this part of the Sister Location bunker, forced to wander between Fredbear's...
The thing about that is that the Mimic was the Mimic was it was taken to the pizzeria. So how exactly would they have gotten it from FNAF 6 building or from right next to it and then taken to it? I guess they could have gone underground. Maybe that works. Maybe they just went into the Sister Location bunker. That could work, I guess. It is an interesting theory. I actually think this is actually fair. A lot of my friends thought it was really bad. I don't think it's bad, actually. I think it's actually a pretty good idea. The only problem with it is that I still believe that the Tales books are in the games, so it doesn't really work very well in that case. But I completely understand where he's coming from, and I understand why people would believe this, especially if you don't believe that the Tales books are in the games. I personally do, so it doesn't work that well, but I understand the point, and I think that the failure of the lights and the shock is actually a really good point.
in Baby's room. I think this room specifically was trying to remind us that Scrap Baby and the original Baby are two separate things. Scrap Baby was Elizabeth with green eyes, the tangle of wires and the shell that belonged to the Springlock costume itself that eventually got scooped and turned into Scrap Baby. But the robot that was inside Baby, the Mimic Endo, is its own thing, separate from Elizabeth, represented by the blue eyes. I think it's important to say that this Endo has obviously swapped out a lot of its parts over time, and can also shapeshift to literally fit itself into any costume in the books. So if some physical features and the scale of the Mimic don't 100% match, the Endo can literally shapeshift. I don't know what to tell you. So who made these mascot costumes? Well, like I said before, these mascot costumes were first introduced in the Twisted Ones to foreshadow Circus Baby's pizza world. We even get a description that sounds just like one of the costumes we see in Ruin. One of the costumes was, quote, a massive contorted bird-like creature with a wide curved beak. These costumes were meant to foreshadow Circus Babies, and Circus Babies was definitely a William Afton thing, so they could be made by William. I mean, the Mushroom Cave was revealed to be William's secret bunker in the Twisted Ones, so that would make sense. But in the fourth closet, Charlie finds a book in Henry's workshop. This book was about the history of the traveling carnival and of the circus. So we know that Henry also had a fascination with the circus as well. It was also revealed that the cave and facility where the costumes were found was built under Henry's house. So it's also possible that these costumes were some of Henry's first creations. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I think
I can agree with that. I actually have a theory that I'm working on right now about Fredbear's Family Diner and the idea of the costumes, the glitch trap costume and the costumes that we see in what's it called? The Fredbear posters in Security Breach. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. I have a theory coming out about that. I'm not going to delve too much into it because I'm going to talk about it in its own mini theory video. But I think that they probably were made by Henry for Fredbear's before Springlock suits were created. But like I'll talk about that in the theory video so that you'll understand better when you actually watch the video.
Wanted 2 is going to pick up right where we left off in Ruin. I mean, the ending of Ruin has an elevator falling to the ground. The trailer for Help Wanted 2 has the sister location elevator falling to the ground. I think we already saw in Ruin that the digital world and the real world are merging, and Cassie is struggling to know what's real and what's not. I think this is going to be the theme of Help Wanted 2, along with visiting the sister location bunker and Circus Baby's Pizza World. I know a lot of you probably think I'm insane, and there's going to be a lot of angry tweets, but I'm not taking any chances anymore. We live in a world where Scott and Steelwool took almost every single ending in Security Breach, even the fully animated one, and said none of that was real. So anything is possible, and I'm trusting these—
I mean, it's not that, like, nothing that was in it could be used at all. Like, we know that the blob still exists, even though that it was drawn by Gregory. So the contents of the endings are still kind of canon, but like they just didn't happen, basically.
Books to tell me what's gonna happen next. And I guess we'll just have to see later this year if I'm onto something or if I'm dead wrong. There's still a ton of things to talk about in this game, like who is Cassie's dad and what's the deal with the scooper. So look forward to more theories in the future. Please remember that this was just a theory. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions. Don't take everything I say as canon, and I hope you enjoyed. See you at the circus.
Okay, that was actually I expected to not enjoy. No, well, I expected to enjoy the theory. I just didn't expect to like think that it was as interesting as I do. Like, I always understand where he's coming from, but I don't ever. I usually don't really agree in that much. I mean, I still don't agree, but I do actually like. I think that this is actually a good theory. I don't think that it really works if Tails is in the games, which I strongly believe, but if you don't believe it, then I can completely understand believing this theory. And I think a lot of the evidence was actually pretty strong. I actually really like the theory, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I will say the one thing that I don't agree with, or well, that I don't think really works at all in this theory, is Circus Baby's endoskeleton literally being the mimic. Like, I can see kind of where he's coming from, but it doesn't really make sense. Outside of, like, the design just not being the same in the slightest, there's just the fact that Elizabeth, or Baby's endoskeleton, was tied in with Ennard, meaning that it wouldn't have stayed behind in Circus Baby's entertainment and rental. And like I said, I think the idea of it being in that room makes kind of some sense. And like, I don't agree with it, but I think it makes some sense. It's kind of interesting. But if that's the case, then Circus Baby's endoskeleton wouldn't have been able to be in Ennard, which we know that it is because she's a part of Ennard, right? So, yeah, that's why I don't really think that it works entirely, but I think most of the theory is interesting and completely valid. So, let me know what you guys think of the theory in the comments down below, and let me know what you think of... I lost my train of thought. Let me know what you think of this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to. And, yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys!